Well, hello everyone. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. I am joined here by Selene Galas, another Rebel News reporter from Alberta. Selene, how are you doing?
I'm doing really fantastic. I left this morning in a blizzard and I came to Ottawa and it's like plus 15 degrees. So
That's great.
it's one good thing in Ottawa
The
right
great,
now.
corrupt, liberal city of Ottawa. You know, the architecture is beautiful here, but the people, not quite the same. If you want to let us know your thoughts throughout the live stream, you can always go on Rumble or Odyssey, send us paid chats, and we'll do our best to read it on air. At the end of the live stream later on, we will have Freedom Convoy volunteer, not quite organizer, participant, public persona, Tom Marazzo coming on. And we'll also have leader of the Ontario Party here in Ontario, Derek Sloan, come on as well to discuss the Emergencies Act inquiry and everything that has happened today. Also, just so that you guys know, on November 19th and November 25th, we will have Rebel News live events in both Toronto and Calgary. And in the Toronto event, I believe that we will have Tamara Leash participate as a speaker. So you will be able to hear from the great Tamara Leash, convoy organizer Tamara Leash as well. So Selene, this was your first day in Ottawa. What was your main takeaway from today?
Well, again, besides the weather, it's just really interesting to see. There's some protesters that have started to show up outside of where the Emergency Commission is being held here in Ottawa. I can only imagine that where there are one, there will be many more to follow. So that'll be interesting. I really thought that it was very interesting what Tom Marazzo screamed for all the people in the back, what we're thinking for the last 3 years. But when he actually refused to talk to mainstream media, that was really interesting. I believe we have one of those clips as well. But again, that's something that a lot of people have been saying, and it's nice to have people publicly refuting or refusing to speak with mainstream media.
Yeah, I think we've heard both Chris Barber, one of the organizers of Freedom Convoy, and Tom Marazzo as well, in both of their testimony, discuss the way that they see mainstream media has manipulated the narrative, has vilified the Freedom Convoy. I think that's the reason why people were so upset in mainstream media, because they weren't giving them a fair share.
They weren't portrayed correctly.
Well, exactly. They were vilifying the people participating in the Freedom Convoy. We can see on the screen right here, Tom Marazzo refusing to take a question from one of the mainstream media reporters earlier today. So today, just a reminder, we had Freedom Convoy lawyer Keith Wilson testify in front of the commission. We also had Freedom Convoyer Tom Marazzo testify as well. And we had Pat King, who ended the day. I think he might still be giving his testimony, King, at the moment. That is very possible. So Selene, you've been following also, I think that you've been following the Emergencies Act inquiry for the past weeks as well, for the past 3 weeks.
I'll agree, that's right.
It's been a long 3 weeks. We always talk about what we're seeing throughout the inquiry. We also talk about our takeaway from the inquiry. What was your takeaway from the past 3 weeks?
Well, as some of you might know, I was actually there when the convoy first arrived in Ottawa. I showed up the same night that the truck started to pile in around the Parliament building and down Wellington. And from that point onward until the police came and crashed it, it was peaceful. So my main takeaway from the Emergencies Act inquiry is that, again, there's a lot of discussion around even what they're calling the protesters. If they're protesters, if they're racist, if they're misogynists, if they're sexist, then the narratives just keeps on changing. And when you see so many inconsistencies with stuff like this, I think it's fairly obvious that it's a cover up that's going on. That's my opinion, at least, that I believe that it's a cover up. And there's no way that you can actually, with all of the proof, all the videos from the very beginning, since those trucks got there, to the very end, no one can tell me that they were anything except peaceful.
100%. You were also part of the Freedom Convoy, and we heard, as you just mentioned, Paul Champ, a lawyer that keeps arguing about how non-peaceful, about how threatening the Freedom Convoy people were. We heard Zexi Lee say that the people that were part of the Freedom Convoy were harassing citizens, even though we learned that the own citizens of Ottawa who were opposing the Freedom Convoy were throwing eggs.
They're egging them, exactly.
They were egging the protesters. Is what you're hearing right now from the testimonies of these anti-convoy people the same thing as you've witnessed as a journalist in Ottawa?
No, like absolutely not. I left before the police started to really pile in there and like crack down on the peaceful protesters. So I just saw the very beginning where everyone was still very much in a state of awe. And it was the first time that you saw so many people smiling together, laughing, being merry, cheering. That was the norm that people were looking for. Mm-hmm. So when you have people like Zexi Lee who are testifying and trying to validate throwing eggs at trucks and at protesters because there was honking or like microaggressions and people were being offended. It's very interesting. Like, how can you validate something like that? What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's so crazy. And we've seen there's a single counter protester. Well, a protester actually that's been here for the past few days in front of the commission building that's been calling the truckers, the Freedom Convoy people, terrorists, that's been calling them racist, that's been calling them far right lunatics. We see her right here. Literally. And not a single supporter of the Freedom Convoy has laid a finger on her. I think they were terrorists. Something like that would have happened. And we have yet to see any violence that's been put on this woman for protesting Tamara Lich, protesting Tom Marazzi, protesting the Freedom Convoy people.
Yeah. Well, especially like think about how Antifa was brought into this as well, right? So you had aggressors in the crowd that were trying to pretend that they were part of the freedom movement as these peaceful protesters. And you could see, even I remember being there when so many people would take interviews from Mocha and myself or Alexa Lavoie or Lincoln J, anyone from Rebel or actual independent media. But you had people with huge cameras going and standing behind like police lines, casting this very ominous shadow over this crowd, making it look very dangerous. And that is not a part of the narrative that the people there like actually saw, listened to. That's not what they're portrayed as, because the mainstream media is very, very good at taking those angles and making sure that the truth is smooth.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why Tom Marazzo refused to answer questions from the mainstream media. I think that's the reason why.
So. I would think so.
No, we've got some great guests that are about to come on in a few minutes. So just tell us a bit more. One last thing, tell us a bit more about what you're going to do here in Ottawa, what you plan on doing for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I'm going to be here to live tweet the court proceedings, just as you've seen many of the Rebel journalists have been doing. And beyond that, I'll be here to scrum some of the people that are testifying as well, alongside William here. I know he's really got a hold on that, but I definitely want a piece of the action, and also grant a little bit of a Western perspective, because someone obviously born and raised in the West, and from so many people seeing so many members of the freedom movement, the convoy, come up from the West Coast all the way to the East to be a part of this. I think that's a really interesting perspective to hold those comparisons.
Yeah, it was definitely a big movement. Well, thanks for coming on, and I truly look forward to be working with you in the next few days, next few weeks.
Absolutely.
All right, let's take a short break, and then when we come on, we will have Tom Marazzo join us to talk about his testimony.